This is Lupercal Studios. Today we're going to be going without our host Icarus Projects, but we should be able to manage the three yappers of us. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead, Murphy.
And I'm Militar Murphy from IG, the one and only.
Hing Hobbies here, left unsupervised, which is extremely unadvised.
Yeah, this is kind of funny. Third episode, and we're already being left unsupervised. For the Warhammer people, that's dangerous because we get left unsupervised and we come home with like $500 in credit card debt.
Of course.
Yeah,
Speaking of that, just as a side note, how'd you guys come up with your IG handles, your names? Where'd that come from?
My last name. My hobby. So
I used to be Nightshade Studios. But I took up Lupercal Studios after I got a bit more knowledgeable on the lore, and I wanted to kind of do a rebrand that wouldn't have people fucking looking up my Xbox handle.
You tell me
for
you don't gamer friends? You telling me you don't want more gamer friends?
No, I always want more gamer friends, but I was thinking about it because it was Nightshade, but it was like all like edgy spelling with like the K in front of it, like medieval Nightshade and blah 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 blah. And I was like, you know what? I'll just rebrand to Lupercal because I like Horus Lupercal, I like the Horus Heresy. And it's paid off because the little ego boost I get when some random stranger on the internet calls me the War Master. I'm just like, hell yeah, this is worth it. This was all entirely worth it.
It was all part of the master plan.
It was all part of the master plan.
Kind of like you, Lupercal. Mine's a variation on an old Xbox handle. Kind of a throwback to my Irish heritage, but we did switch over to Militarum a couple sessions ago, so decided to make the name double M. Rolls off the tongue a little bit better.
Nice. I used to have the Lupercal Painting Studios, but then some naysayer on my comment section was like, but you don't even paint that much. And I looked at him and was like, you ass. But then I thought, he's right. That's fair.
Yeah.
None of us paint enough. We all, even the people who paint professionally, don't paint enough. And I've kind of talked about this on my channel a little bit, and maybe you guys can chip in on this. What kind of makes a successful hobby versus Instagram page, hobby channel, and you kind of nail it down to three. There's three areas you can kind of focus into, and I think every specifically Warhammer, but it applies to other niches as well, falls into one of three categories or multiple of these three. The first is what I call the pure hobby pages, and these are the people that I love the most, and I follow religiously. And these are the guys who really do. They have the multi-day. They spend hours and hours painting these absolutely beautiful models, and their whole page is just filled with models, close-up pictures of models
with that are good camera quality.
Good camera quality, perfect. And you're like, my God! And there's no fluff. There is no cheese. There's no reposting. It's like every single post on this page is just a gold demon tier model, and they're really pure. And I love those hobbies. I love those pages. I follow them religiously. They post a picture and it gets like 10 likes, and I just feel god awful for that, because here's this guy, he's churning out post after post of things that are better than anything I've ever done, and there's definitely a few of them out there. So the pure hobby pages.
20 likes, 100
20 likes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm out here putting up shirtless pics and getting thousands of likes. But the other one is kind of on the other end, the sort of cheap, and that is the pure meme page. The pure, I'm going to repost funny memes, post kind of cringy or edgy content, and just farm engagement, which we all do that to some degree.
I'm kind of
those ones. Yeah, those ones kind of they burn bright because everyone shares them, everyone engages with them, etc., etc. and then they kind of taper off because eventually you run out of original content, and it's hard to just keep generating memes. So those are the quick flares. Usually they'll get a few thousand followers, and then you've got people who focus on the actual hobby itself, which is to say, and I put Get Good in this. He kind of dabbles in all three areas, but where they're actually posting, here's how to play, here's ways you can, there might be some painting techniques, but here's tactical techniques for the board, how to be a better player in the game. And those guys tend to, it is a much slower build, but they end up getting a much bigger audience. Auspex Tactics is a really, really good example of this. His channel is just pure, here's the meta of the game, here's how to do it well, and then, but I think the most successful channels are the ones that kind of blend all three of those. That's kind of what I tried to do with my channel, at least a little bit, is you have some painting, people want to see your painting, they want to see that you're engaged with the hobby, that you're painting a little bit. You have some memes because we're all on Instagram for the lulz, obviously we want something that's going to make us snort when we're scrolling through doom scroll.
Homie, I'm in there for the car wrecks.
Exactly. And then we also need to see that you're engaged with the hobby, that you're playing with other people and you're doing it socially. So it's a balance between all three. So I'd ask you guys, where do you guys think your brand or your channel kind of sits between that sort of trifecta of hobby, gameplay, and memery/chicanery?
Ooh.
I'll let Hank go first because we're always interrupting Hank.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about it for a second, but I started off more hobby side, and then as I was doing more training, and still even now, I've had to go more meme side because I just don't have enough that on my stuff with me half the time to actually post out enough of the hobby stuff. But I definitely started off more hobby, and now it's a lot of memes. Just like you were talking about, it's very flickering sometimes. Like for example, my one post that was like a Night Lord, and then in the background, and it just says, "If finger looking good implies the existence of toe sucking evil," and that randomly popped off. And it really made me lose a little bit of faith in humanity because I just made that while I was on the shitter. And that was
always the shitter ones, dude. Every fucking time.
Past 2 months, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yep.
I remember the first reel I made that got over 1 million views and I gained 1,000 followers off of it. That was like a meme, and it was me sitting at my desk going you knew who I was when you started hanging out with me. It's not my fault. You're just now figuring out I'm weird. I made that just because I was told that I needed to post every 48 hours. Otherwise, the Instagram algorithm would think that I got hit by a bus. And then I go take a shower and I come back and it was 300,000 views. And they're just sitting there going, why? They didn't give a damn about my super well painted Lionel Johnson, but
exactly.
They very much cared about that.
Exactly. That's is the same for me. My most successful post, I've put models that I poured my heart and soul into, pictures of my armies, of games, of all this other stuff, and they do well. The best post I ever had was, you guys may remember it, was a picture of, I did a picture of the Emperor on the Golden Throne, and then I photoshopped the head of Yakub onto him. And he was talking to Gilliman, and he said, "Go forth, my Caucasian creation, and save humanity."
Nice.
And it's just a joke. The Emperor is actually Yakub, which that's some really deep, internet lore. You need at least 7 hours of screen time a day to understand that meme. But it went viral, so I was very proud of it. I was just not proud of the fact that it went viral on Instagram, but it went more viral on Reddit. Apparently, that it was super popular on Reddit for a while.
See, that's
what posted 6 times, and that's when I was like, "Oh, that's disgusting."
That's what actually you were talking about Get Good earlier. Get Good, his whole thing, because almost no one knew about Get Good. I remember when I met him, he had okay, that's wrong. He had 40,000 followers. That's big for a meme channel. But I remember when he really popped off with the shadowboxing world leader story.
Oh,
that was just supposed to be a joke. But that picked up a lot of traction, and that's what really doubled his engagement and made Get Good a much more well-known name.
Yeah.
I solidified him into like Warhammer legend. Like that's like everybody knows about that now, and it's a classic like backdrop meme that people like fall onto.
Yeah. And that's what really like boosts him up there. I know in terms of engage like content, I used to be purely hobby as well. I painted a lot of Black Templars, put my Black Templars up. I tried a little bit of Horus Heresy, and I mean like I get like 30 likes or something for my 120 followers, but it really wasn't much. And I started to first I was supplementing it with memes. But kind of like the story of Neebs Gaming. I don't know if y'all keep up with them, but at first they were really big into animations and whatnot, but they had to switch over to gaming content just to keep the lights on. And that's what happened to my channel. I was just sitting there like, okay, no one's liking the painting stuff, but they're really liking the Warhammer related skits. So it's kind of turned my channel to like a full rounder where I'm posting game pictures, I'm posting what models I get done, I post memes, mostly memes, just to keep my followers from leaving. And recently, that's not working either. This is a whole thing. But again, the algorithm, I think Meta changed up their stuff to where they don't really try to push the meme channels much anymore. It's actually kind of bad.
Well, they limited the amount of hashtags you can actually put on something.
I know. I used to be guilty of smashing a hashtag. If there was a hashtag under the sun, you'd click on one of my videos and it'd be like hashtag Warhammer, hashtag 40K, hashtag 30K, hashtag 20K, hashtag 10K, hashtag plastic models, hashtag miniature games, hashtag miniatures, hashtag miniature tabletop. Yeah.
Shortcut. You know how you can like make like it was like 4 W's in a row. And it would macro or like it would do the shortcut where it'd be like all 30 hashtags that I would normally like to get the most engagement. I just fucking slap down on everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's kind of shift topics here away from the IG side of things. When since you guys started playing, I've kind of been around for the long haul with this. What's been your favorite edition?
Oof. It's
can I like break an edition in half?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. And a lot of factions can do that because we don't get timely releases. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the middle portion of 9th edition.
Ninth really was fun. Yeah.
It had so many like fluffy like enhancements and things you could do, and like the detachments just felt right. And that's why I liked it so much. But yeah, that's my answer.
Nine
they
was
weren't attachments at that point, man. Those were sub factions.
Sub factions, yeah.
Back in the day, we didn't have none of them fancy schmancy detachments. You had your army, and if they were orange, they got +1 to hit, and if they were blue, they got -1 to wound.
Yep.
And you had 3 pages of stratagems.
Hey, you're gonna like flop, and you're gonna like it.
You're gonna take your 3 pages of stratagems, and you're gonna like it.
I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. I actually loved 7th edition. I started around 3, and obviously, being mainly a guard player, guard was always just got wrecked like so badly by everybody. Going up like 3rd, 4th, 5th, it was bad. And I don't really like the old way they used to do the tanks. Like I love firing arcs, and I love the kind of realistic way that they would treat, damage tables for vehicles. But as a guard player, it made it very, very frustrating to play because I would have all these vehicles, and if you moved them, you couldn't fire the main cannon, and if you got, crew shaken or crew stunned, you couldn't do anything, and if you got tied up in close combat, you couldn't do anything with a tank. It was just done. You'd back it up, and then it would just wouldn't do anything for a whole nother turn. So it was really, really easy to kind of shut down the way that you wanted to play as a guard player. 7th was great because that's when they finally came out with the order system, or was it late 6th? I don't know, about 7th. The order system for the guards, which was, we were actually able to use our officers correctly to augment our vehicles, to augment our infantry. And that synergy, I remember the very first game I had in 7th, and I got to use my order system for the very first time, and it just worked great. And I just kicked this Space Marine player's ass and loved it every second. I'm like, man, this is great. Unfortunately, 7th is one of the most universally hated editions out of all of them, because that was the really late where we were getting to the point where the rules were becoming very onerous, because they would just add annexes every time there was a new release or new something. That's when like the running joke in 7th was you show up to the table and you have like 4 books with you to explain the rules for your army. You have your codex, you have the rule book, and then you have like 2 other annexes, a sub-faction book, and then 2 annexes that were, one was released in White Dwarf and one was released, it was nonsense. And it became really, really difficult to actually, the rule load was getting very, very heavy. And that's why, over 8th and 9th, they kind of did a hard reset. And 10th, they refined it. And now, we're going into
11th edition like that made a appearance again, those rules in 2nd edition of Horus Heresy. I remember because I played a lot of 2nd edition of Horus Heresy, and the firing arcs and all of the keywords. Yep. Basically, it was just 7th edition, but they cleaned up a lot of the fluff in a weird way and all those extra rules.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten to play as much Horus Heresy as I would like. The few times I have gotten to, I've loved it because it's just a blast from the past.
It's a blast from the past, and also it's like impossible to take Heresy seriously.
Yeah.
If you and your buddies are playing Heresy and someone's taking it seriously, I know we've got a guy in our local group who will not go named. I really hope they didn't tell him about this podcast. Anyway, he like when we play our Heresy games, if you show up and you've like gone through and taken it seriously and put together a quote unquote like good list, like you'll sit there and be like, hey, you're what's the word? Your Imperial Fist probably want more of these. Like there's a difference between like, hey, my army rule benefits this, so I just brought a few more of that. But if like we caught you coming to the the free play nights, whatever, and we looked over at you and you had that barely legal would win you a tournament list, when the whole point was like the rest of us are drinking beers, getting a little tipsy and rolling dice to see how many yellow bananas we can blow off the board.
All right.
And if we caught you like coming with like a good list, quote unquote, we'd sit there and just be like, what the fuck, guy?
For shame. No, I don't think I ever hear like competitive and Horus Heresy in the same sentence. Like, yeah, it happens at a time or two, but like, I don't know. I like you said, people will get like very pissed off at you. Like every time my buddy plays so much of it, and like he's just like, if they have more than 2 dreadnoughts in their army, like, the fuck are you doing or whatever? It's like something like that when dreadnoughts were kind of ridiculous.
That was 2nd edition. It was a limit of. It was almost a universal house rule, and that's like gospel for gaming communities. If it's so common of a house rule that you just kind of assume that's the rule at any new place, and then it's true. Like, and it was 1 dreadnought for every 1,000 points, because the things were basically impossible to kill, and it was universally house ruled, and it was gospel to Horus Heresy players. But if you showed up and like you refused to adhere to that, you just kind of end up put on a boat and slowly pushed out to sea to go find the rest of your people back over in the 40K aisle.
Yeah, well, you need other people to play with, and that's an important part. Like as we talk on about like community and stuff, like being a good person, and also like realizing you're not just adhering to the Warhammer rules, you're also adhering to the other person's rules in like the shop or whatever community you're in.
How would you guys
go ahead?
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, how would you guys describe your individual play style? Like, what's your kind of go-to? And it can be across factions. It can be faction specific. How would you say this is how I am always have a tendency, or how I like to play the game on the tabletop, competitively in a friendly game or at your local RTT? When you're entering a match with somebody else, how do you play? What, at the risk of kind of revealing your technique, but go ahead.
I play since I play Chaos Knights, right? I'm not. I wouldn't say as tanky as normal knights, because I don't have as easy access to Feel No Pain sometimes. But I still have that big check profile. But a lot of what I do is I play super defensive, and I'm not coming out of cover first. I'm just not going to do it. Like, even if I go first, I will burn a turn just to like not move out of cover because I'm not trying to catch a las cannon. But one thing I will do just for the fun of it, especially the new CK stuff that lets you give an extra 3 inches to a carnivore, which was already sitting at a base 14. And reroll charges just innately. It is a melee powerhouse. So what I'll do is I'll play super cagey with a whole bunch of my shooting units, and I will just throw the carnivores in because there's 150 points a pop, and they do strength 12, AP -3, damage D6 +2 per claw attack, and they each have 6 with built-in sustained hits.
Jeez.
And I will just sit there and be like, yeah. Anyway, 17-inch move, little ball of death, and I'll just, even if they don't make their charge, like they don't touch something, or if they touch something, die, and they're just sat in the middle of the open, I'll force my opponent to deal with the little frickin' Tasmanian devil while I actually like do the rest of my game. And then once they die, well, typically, I've gotten an opportunity to get where I need to go.
I bet you love the Born Soldiers rule with the guard, where our vehicles just auto wound everything on 6s.
I really don't. I really don't. I routinely get into, I wouldn't say arguments, because like when you're sitting there and like your buddy tells you a new rule for his army, you're not going to sit there and argue with him because it makes sense. He's not wrong, but you are going to sit there and tell him that's bullshit.
That is, yes, total.
I will. I have a buddy and he plays guard, and I've routinely just been there like, so what's the point of guard? And he says, well, we have a horde army, so they don't really hit that could and they're kind of squishy. And then I'll look at his new rules and be like, so they're slow? No. So they don't hit as good? Actually, we hit on 2s most of the time with this new rule. Okay, so you're not that. You're pretty squishy. Actually, we all have built-in 5-up invulns now with this. Okay, so you're not slow. You're not inaccurate. You're not soft. What are you? And he's just like, I'm just 200 problems on a board now.
You're taking all our excuses away. Guard players, we love to hide behind the the kind of the lore of like, well, you know what? If I lose, it's because we're just overmatched. We're facing, we're desperate regular humans just facing superhumans and aliens and evil gods, and we tried our best. But that's why we lost. If I win, it's because I'm a tactical genius and I beat you, Mr. Space Marine, with your superhuman soldiers and your walking war death machines and everything else, and I beat it because pure tactics and technique. We don't ever actually guard players we're actually we aren't very good about admitting when our faction is good in the meta, when we do have some broken rules, like our artillery was for a while, like tanks were, like we do have some stuff where it's like, man, that is nasty. Yogi, go ahead. You were talking about your play style.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that also, like, part of playing the guard thing is like you guys had history like back for so many editions like early on, just getting stomped on, that it's just that like past of, oh, I've always sucked, and I can't admit that I've gotten better. But speaking for myself, my own personal bit, oh man, I guess I would say like I do a lot of like synergy stuff. Like I try to layer up as many, like, not like fucking rule of 3 shit, but like if like units work together, like Venom, like for example, like horde armies, I'm always gonna have like my Venom tropes. Like I want it to be like thematically supporting each other. Like if you're gonna see one unit on the board, I'll put the other one on there, just because it makes sense. Like you'll have your Venom tropes. Oh well, if I'm having a Venom trope, that means I also need like more poison, so then you have like your psychophages, and then it becomes like a whole thing. But I try to like bake that in more. And I like a lot of technical like melee armies. So I had World Eaters for a while that I ran with. Whenever I played Tyranids, like I have a good shooting base, but like the brunt, it has like a very like fast moving melee. And which is why I also started up my Genestealer Colts army, because there's a lot of melee to be in there, and a lot of like very technical things you have to do. Because I like fancy rules. I don't like being like, oh, at the moment I just point at something and I get it's gonna die now. Okay. Good talk.
Gotcha.
Oh, so you play? You got Gene Stealers in yours?
Yeah, I just picked up. I'm almost at my full 2,000 points. I'm bringing it to the Rocky Mountain GT actually. So be
Okay.
good.
I recently got introduced. I still won the game because he, set up bad enough that it didn't matter what he did at that point. But I know as a knight player, I catch a lot of flack for being a knight player, and Murphy can attest to that because I'm sure he's
Yep.
been to enough tournaments. People
Mm-hmm.
hate knight players
I
because
love knight players, man.
well, if the thing is, people who lose to knight players or don't like guard and knights have like a heated rivalry that was foretold in the scrolls. Like I have a heated match against knights or guard every time I play against guard because we're kind of perfect set. We both have enough anti-tank and enough anti-infantry, quote unquote, that like it's a good match between the two. But like I've rolled up enough against enough people, they'd be like, I don't have enough las cannons. I guess I'll just lose. And I'd be like, homie, you just got to outmaneuver. I've got 9 models. But
Gotta kill the enemy to win. It's a points game for a reason.
yeah. But anyway, he slapped down 20 Gene Stealers in the middle of the board with some like surgical deep strike stuff, and I was like, oh. What are they going to do? They're infantry. You're just going to tie me up? He was like, nah, watch this. I watched him delete an abominate, just a flood of dev wounds. And I had to rethink my entire afternoon.
Yep. You do have those things, and to Yogi's point on synergy, like it is kind of hard to find. It's for me, it's always the balance between playing the way that's fun and playing the way that's effective.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the joy for me is looking at the table and seeing it feels like a battle is kind of playing out. So this is, my strategy always leans toward, if you're a really disciplined player, and better players than me have talked about this ad nauseum, the way to stage your movement so that you've got the center locked down, or you've got the left locked down, and then you're kind of putting a bully unit or something out to the right, but not committing everywhere at once, and just having your home base strong, having the center strong, having a bully unit there, and being, there's all kinds of tactics and techniques there. But bottom line, you're supposed to be disciplined. You're supposed to be disciplined with where you commit your army. You're supposed to lock down areas of the board and then keep the enemy busy in his areas so that he's always playing defense. And that's kind of basic technique for making sure you can win, and that's regardless of faction.
So that's part of the reason I like knights so much, because I move quick enough and my stuff is hard hitting enough that it allows me freedom.
Exactly.
I can be in the center of the board, and then I know that if I absolutely need to, I can slap a few extra inches on my movement, and I can be 13 inches in any direction with a big knight, 15 with a little knight, 17 with a carnivore. Like, I like that freedom, that I'm tanky enough to survive and I'm fast enough to get where I need to go.
Well, knights are their own thing because you guys do have towering, and you do have the ability to walk through buildings at risk to yourself. Like they give you that flexibility because you're right. You do have 9 models. On the guard side, for me, it's always interesting because I like to play vehicle heavy armies, but I'm always doing a combined arms force. I want to bring something in the backfield that I can touch someone with. I want to bring enough infantry that I can, throw squads at people and not be afraid when they evaporate on, the enemy tanky unit. And I want enough vehicles that I can, zip around the board if need be and hit hard. So the armies I always field always end up being this sort of almost pure combined arms force. I got a lot of infantry, got a lot of tanks, got a lot of transports, and I got some artillery. And the good part of that is if you spread it out evenly in the deployment zone, I can basically make sure that every objective has some armor going to it, some mechanized infantry going to it, and a squad of foot sloggers and a little bit of artillery backup. So something to soften it up, something to get there quick, something to follow up when those guys die, and something to hit heavy if he throws something big at it. And thing is, that's a very middle of the way. It's a good force. If I look at every objective, I'm like, I'm going to put a Leman Russ tank, a Chimera, 2 infantry squads, and maybe something else on each objective. Well, that's a pretty good little chunk of your force. But by itself, that's not something that is going to hold that if he commits very hard to any one of it. If he pops that tank, if he pops that Chimera. So where I always end up is I'm hitting all 3 places at once, or all 4, whatever. He picks one, goes hard on it. And I'm basically banking on, hey, can that tank, that Chimera, those 2 infantry squads, and that one, special weapon squad or heavy weapon squad, can they hold the fort at that center objective point or that side objective point long enough while everything else just kind of sits there and takes pot shots at him from afar? And it works about 2/3 of the time. 2/3 of the time, I'm everywhere. He tries to hit me everywhere. And I can kind of outlast him because I can back up each place more than he can. And then 1/3 of the time, it fails spectacularly. Either A, he eats 1 or 2 objectives and then just folds in my whole line, or B, it fails everywhere because I roll horribly, and then I'm just kind of on the back foot for the whole time. And ironically, where that's happened the most is what you just mentioned, is with Gene Stealers, because they just pop everything up, close in front of you. I've had a couple games with Gene Stealer cults where I've been able to successfully screen pretty much the entire board and they can't bring their army in. But if I'm not able to do that, it's rough. It's rough when they can pop up behind your line, in front of your line, everything, and then you're kind of fighting in all directions.
Yeah, it's always bad when they end up in your back line, because then you're completely relying on RNGesus to just spare you.
Yeah. And
because that 9-inch charge, that 6-inch charge, I mean, people fail it all the time. You hear the stories, but they never seem to fail it when you really need them to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Yogi.
It's down to I don't know. Also, how expendable. It's they're as expendable as guard, but they have all the special rules of they don't do as much damage, but they have special rules of I just deep strike, by the way, and there's 20 options, and I can just throw away whatever I want. So it's not like you're really committing anywhere that they can really react to, which is an interesting idea. I like.
And
guard as a concept. I get really sad about its execution sometimes, because GW, what they'll do is to be like, well, what if guard could do this? And then they'll give guard a thing. Because I can, let's see, no offense, Murphy, to your guard peoples and all guard people who might be listening. Guard people ruin game-wide rules more than any other faction. We couldn't keep 3-inch deep strike because of guard. We couldn't keep reinforcements because of guard. We couldn't keep indirect because of guard. Yeah. So, as a knight player, yes. My Imperial cousins ruined towering for everyone. Oh, sorry, and the Eldar. And the Eldar ruined tower for everyone. We did that. I'll take credit for, ruining towering. We were irresponsible with that much power. But then, guard over here just being like, yeah, we can deep strike entire squads of Scions right next to you and melt the range with a whole bunch of plasma and completely fuck the game.
Or you have the 4-man kill team of 2 Meltas, 2 plasmas, and I can drop that because the models are so small. I can drop it literally almost anywhere on the map.
Mm-hmm.
The Scions, especially if you're using the old metal Scions, are so tiny that it's I can put this anywhere. You can't screen me 3 inches across the entire board. And guard does do that, and I do think, contrary, a lot of guard players get really upset when we get nerfed on these things. I like it because it does force us back into being kind of a jack of all trades. When indirect was super buffed, pretty much every guard player went to the parking lot, the artillery parking lot. Okay, I'm gonna stick a bunch of basilisks and some manticores in my backfield. I'm gonna have a bunch of scouts,
field guns.
a bunch of scout sentinels up front, and I'm going to reinforce those scout sentinels because I can bring them back, a full squad of scout sentinels if I want to, and I can hit you on 2s and 3s and re-roll wounds, and it's nuts. If you stack the stratagems And it was just insane. Every single turn you would delete a big unit off the board.
I got really mad when the indirect stuff happened because a lot of my Chaos Knights, all my War Dogs, my Armiger equivalent, all have those Havoc launchers. Yep. And our Havoc launchers aren't anything special. I mean, it's an indirect 5 strength, no AP, 1 damage, D6 shots with blast. So like a pretty standard, same thing that's on a Rhino, same thing that's on a Predator, like nothing special, but it's something to give us a little more, power projection. And I used to be hitting on 2s with my
I remember that
brigands.
Yep.
And now it is gone, and not because of what I did.
No. To your point though, about Guard and Chaos Knights having a bit of a rivalry. It's a really good natured rivalry. I love playing Knights. Yeah. I've had tournaments, buddies, like playing Knights is fun because it's one of the only, we talked about in the last episode, every faction kind of getting hammered to where every unit they have has to fill basically the same role across factions. Knights are the ones who really kind of get away from that. So when you play Knights, you actually do feel like you're playing a different game. I love playing against Knights. It's a blast, win or lose. And I've had some great games against Knights. And what's also, I've had, usually how a game is going to go against a faction. Mm-hmm. I know if I'm against GSC, it's either going to be, I'm going to screen them properly and I'm going to wipe them off the board, like bottom of turn 2 or 3, or it's going to be a bloodbath on my end because I'm not going to screen properly, and the Gene Stealers are going to eat my backline. It's one or the other. Knights, I've had every type of game you could have with Knights. I've had nail biters. I've had blowouts where I got real lucky and just popped him from afar. I've had, a guy who basically killed every single one of my tanks, and the whole game was me running infantry squads around in chimeras and trying to hold the objectives while because he didn't have enough people to like block me. And so it was almost like this game of cat and mouse with all these mechanized infantry squads. It was a blast, and I loved it. I was like, I never played a game like that. So yeah, I love playing Knights, and it's definitely a great rivalry.
I love playing Guard because it was one of the first games I ever really played against. Because my buddy, when I was getting into Warhammer, was a huge Guard player.
Yeah.
And so I always have a fondness for playing against Guard, and it makes me kind of sad that that's kind of waned a little bit as they've gotten some more tricks up their sleeve. But
more mainstream.
How dare mainstream, but like how dare my favorite victim, learn to block?
Absolutely.
This is not in the rules. This is bull. He's supposed to roll over and die so I can get my feel good.
Well, that kind of is a good transition, and I'll let Yogi take this one. What's your, in terms of, and you can interpret this how you will. What is your favorite faction to play against, and what is your least favorite faction to play against? And you can say this in terms of fun, in terms of I'm most likely to beat, I'm most likely to lose, whatever you want to interpret it as. Who do you like playing against, and who do you not like playing against?
My dislike would be for Eldar, and it's not just because they've been like having their rules thing. It's really annoying to play against a glass cannon army, that like doesn't expose itself and has like, I think Eldar consistently have had the most confusing rules, at the start of an edition, and they usually just pop up randomly. And they're like, oh yeah, my unit does this. Like this is really annoying because they're so hard to keep up with. Not to mention they just also have random like weapons of just like fire dragons. You're like, oh, they're just tiny little guys with some meltas. Nuh-uh. It's gonna be pretty brutal for any of your tanks. My favorite to play against though, I'm gonna say Tyranids are my favorite to play against. Just because
Really?
it is. I don't know. I love playing Tyranids. I love playing against Tyranids because I just like my bugs.
It's satisfying to kill Tyranids.
It is, and they also like they play so different every time. Like it'll be a little bit when you go between them, like because you got people that love the swarm aspect, you got people that love the big monster, Crusher Stampede, and everything in the middle. So like I feel like the Tyranid player base as you play them like is very diverse.
I hate going Eldar. I despised when they have that Wraith Knight. I played against one guy early in 10.
Oh,
he
yeah.
had a Wraith Knight with the big ass gun that dealt like a flat 10 damage or 8 damage, whatever it was, and it could shoot, move. who could move, shoot, move. So he kept popping out, deleting a war dog, and then going right back behind a building. And I was just sitting there going, like, you suck. But in terms of like most favorite, feed me more Space Marines. Let me fight more Space Marines. I love fighting Space Marines because Space Marines, you know what you got. They don't got any, despite their absolute just horde of detachments. I know what I'm like lining up against when I fight a Space Marine. I'm going to line up against a whole bunch of stuff, almost entirely made up of 3-up saves. No surprising 2-up saves for some reason, except for on like a few vehicles and whatnot, a few characters. But I know I'm going to line up against some 3-up saves, probably T4 to T6. They're going to move at a very consistent speed. And I don't have to sit there and wonder, like, okay, what's the weird thing that's going to happen when I play against these Codex compliant Space Marines? Because I know they're trading, despite having the huge, just bloated line, they trade fancy, like, gotcha rules for having just generally good stuff.
Yep, good stats all around the board pretty much. And they have a unit that anything they want. So if one unit ain't doing it, they'll find another one.
Yeah, so like I like the consistency. When I line up against a guard player, I have to sit there and be like, okay, what is this guy going to do that makes his guard not hit like guard? Well, I'm going to line up against an Eldar player. I'm like, what's this guy going to do that breaks the game and, doesn't make the movement phase anymore? If I line up against a Gene Stealer or a Tyranid, I got to sit there and wonder, well, what does this guy have in his back pocket that is incredibly powerful, and unless you know it's about to happen, you don't prep for it. Like the first time I got run up by a bunch of Gene Stealer hordes and realized that for some reason these infantry all have 4 attacks each, hitting on, 2s with Dev.
Yep.
If you didn't know that was about to happen, you probably wouldn't have prepped for that, like I didn't. But so I love playing against Space Marines. Feed me more 2-wound models that I have the perfect amount of firepower to kill. And I despise playing Votann.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Heard that one.
I despise Votann because they have a lot of good shooting. I hate that the grudge tokens and whatnot. I hate that I actively get punished for trying to do
the point,
like my part. Like the more I kill and the harder, like the more smart decisions I make, the harder the game becomes for me. Like that's what annoys me. But I mean, like it's thematic. It makes sense. And also, I still hold an insane grudge against them from 9th edition for the crime of their existence.
Came out, yeah.
We had a guy in my local scene who sold and bought several armies. I don't know if I ever spoke about him on this channel. But he bought 3 of the Votann army sets so that he could run a full maxed out list of Votann for a 1K tournament. And he snuck an extra like 400 points into the game. And we had to ban him we had to disqualify him. And he was like, I still get texts sometimes from that guy.
That is crazy.
To
like anything that you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to break the most basic rule ever. I can't do that.
He was sitting there, and his excuse was, they updated the app, and I didn't know. And I was like, homie, it's all over Warhammer community. Everyone in this room knew that happened. So he showed up with an extra 400 points, and, with his broken army, like 2 days before the big nerf. Because I remember they hit the Votann in a wave of 3, where the first time, was enough to get them unbanned from Germany. And then the second one was enough to get him down to a 55. And then the last one sent those sons of bitches down to like a 40, just out of spite.
Yeah, that was rough. I'd say for me, I hate to say this because one of my best friends is a player of this faction. We play all the time, and I don't have.
I hope he hears this.
I hope he hears this. Grey Knights. I do not like playing Grey Knights. And I know, like, let me just. it is not because, I've beat him, he's beat me. It's the way that I described earlier, my play style. It is most dissipated, I guess you could say. It's distorted by the play style for Grey Knights, which is pop down, hold, have a bunch of tanky Terminators, have, something that's hitting really hard, but with super mobility in the terms that it can't move a ton, but it can, he can lift it up off the board at any time and then put it somewhere else. I've had games against Grey Knights where I have won, but it is at great cost, and I've barely done any damage to him because it's just huge blobs of Terminators. And I've really only been able to do it by just maneuvering and screening and holding on for dear life while he just burns through my vehicles, my infantry. And then when I've lost, it has been a handy loss. He's lost, a handful of models, and my whole army, I've got nothing left on the board. So yes. Those games are just not super fun. And I love this because, one of my best friends who I play with all the time, he plays Tau, he plays Slaanesh, he plays Grey Knights, but his Grey Knights army is beautiful. He's painted it to like such a great degree. It looks amazing on the board. And when he puts that thing down on the board, I'm like, golly, this is going to be a long 3 hours, and it's not going to be very satisfying for me. All the same, like, you're going to have those. As far as fun to play, the easy answer is to say Orks, but everybody has fun playing against Orks. It's always a blast. Same reason it's great playing against Guard. You're always going to get a high kill count, and some crazy things are going to happen. I will say, this may be weird. There's going to be some player out there who's going to prove me wrong on this. I have never lost to Dark Eldar. And I have always, every single game I've played against Dark Eldar, I have had a really satisfying and really kind of even win where, the Dark Eldar do their thing. He pulls off a couple things and does some damage, but usually I can handily counter almost everything the Dark Eldar, throw at me. And I don't know if that's just been a fluke or if I just haven't played that many Dark Eldar players. But every time I'm against a Dark Eldar player, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun. I got this in the bag. You're gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've had the mix of it's the people that are pretty good, is always gonna be a fun time. But then if you ever run across like the really good ones, like it is actually pain because they know their army's so on where to position where it's just like for me it's like it depends on the person playing Dark Eldar, but like if they like have all their tools and everything laid out, like the special markers and everything, I'm like I'm cooked. It's over.
Yeah.
Well, you can say that about anyone who has their special tools. If I rock up against a Dark Angel player and that guy cracks out his like Oath of Moment thing tokens with the frickin' like little sword and wings on them, this guy 3D printed devices for this. I'm screwed.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point. Anybody that walks in with that, you're just like automatically, or plug it in Ikarus dice over. But yeah, like anytime you see someone like really committed to that army, I'm already like, yeah, okay, this is gonna be a fight.
This guy, he's a tier, as we discussed, he's a tier 3 or 4 player. He knows his faction very, very well, and he's going to use it to its fullest effect. And I think you're right on that. Dark Eldar players, there are so few of them. There aren't many Dark Eldar players out there, and partly because the faction. It's got a bad rap. It's satanic sex elf. So I think a lot of people, if you're going to go the satanic sex elf route, just go full Slaanesh at that point.
Extra
but
stuffy.
Yeah, exactly. But also it's partially there's a real world thing for that, and that's that faction just did not get that much love for a very, very long time. They were still running like Finecast. A lot of their like mainline units were still Finecast models from 15 years ago. They hadn't gotten any type of update. The old what's her name? Who's the red-haired chick?
Oh, I know Lilith.
Lilith Hesperex. Yeah, like her old model was like really rough looking. They've got new ones now. But so if you were committed to that faction, you were one of two people. you were either A, someone who just loved the aesthetic, loved the faction, and was a true hobbyist, and painted and built that army. You'd had it for 15, 20 years, and you played it, and you weren't super competitive with it. And so that's part of it. Or you're a tryhard. You're a I'm gonna make this faction work competitive guy, because they do have some pretty cool rules, and you know how to play that faction, and you use it like a scalpel. To date, I don't think I've ever run against one of those guys with Dark Eldar, but I know they're out there. I know there's some.
I would consider.
Everyone die.
Yeah, Yogi cut out there for.
Yeah, I don't know why. Can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, I'll be second. I'm getting an important phone call. So
disgusting. Anyway, I can always yap. I love yapping. I remember back in the beginning of 9th edition, because Dark Eldar were one of the first codexes alongside Space Marines, and the Dark Eldar were a problem. They just, because they got their codex first in 9th edition, and they were a glass cannon, like, they'd just be looking at you and dead. And I remember a guy in my local scene, because I was new, he didn't really meet his match for his Dark Eldar until Black Templars came out. And the thing that frustrated him to no end was when Black Templars came out with their big refresh in 9th edition, everything in my army had a 5-up invuln. And like that, his entire like cannon of glass just went away.
Yeah, it is always, and that's one thing, again, I'm going to say, I come back to loving the Guard. There are armies where if you can break their synergy, they pretty much fall apart. And the Guard is very forgiving in that regard. And I think a lot of, that's why it tends to attract, you've got the old school Guardsmen like me, but it does attract a lot of new players, because you can put a Guard army together that does not have a bunch of crazy rules and synergy, and it's got big guns, and it's got a lot of infantry, and that's pretty dang forgiving right there. Run at the enemy and fight, shoot and die. That you can win with that, and you can have a good game with that, even if you're not using your order system to the fullest effect. If you're not using your scouts to buff your indirect, you still got enough guns, and they hit hard enough that even if things fall apart, you can still do some damage. You've always got options.
Yeah, for me, I was playing against the guy, and go ahead.
Oh, I'm back, by the way. Sorry.
Go ahead.
The thing is, like, whenever I look at an army, like, the more elite armies are, like, attractive for new players, just because it's easier to get into. But as you're more experienced in the hobby, like, you start realizing the more numbers you got, like, the more mistakes you can make, and it kind of is a nice buffer, especially for, like, me wanting to do Guard after I'm doing GST, which probably won't happen because I'm going to be sick of batch painting pretty soon.
I feel really bad for a lot of new players, because I was also in this group that fall into the Custodes trap.
Yep.
I feel so bad for them, because here's the thing. If you listen to the books, because I listened to the books before I got into Custodes, and I loved them, and then Henry Cavill was into Custodes, and I didn't need any more convincing. I mean, Superman told me to buy Custodes. But then I would try to play Custodes, and as a new player, you'd think it would be easier because it's very few models. You don't have to paint as much. The painting's easy. And you get on the board and realize that the skill ceiling is so incredibly high because you've got 8 units.
Yep, you better know how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a trap.
You're gifted with very consistent units, but it's a trap because, like, it's also because you get them, right? And you spend $500 on your 2K, Custodes army. If you get a couple of combat patrols and mom gives you something for Christmas, but then you realize you don't like it, and then you're like, well, what else they got? Because I really like the idea of Warhammer. Maybe it's just not this army. And the next thing you know, you're like me, who has 5 armies, and then other 4 game systems.
I have so many. It's so bad. It's such a bad habit. I mean, it's good because, like, at least I'm not addicted to crack. But, like,
at least I'm not smoking crack, Mom.
Exactly.
It's worse. I'm huffing glue fumes. I think we're hitting the time here. Is that the case?
Well, we're
approaching about an hour.
I want.
Yeah.
I can do what I want.
Pretty much.
No, I got you though.
Yeah. May have to hop off here in a second, guys. Do we want to kind of close it out?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. All right, everybody. This has been the Ikarus Podcast. I am Lupercal Studios. You can find me at Lupercal Studios on Facebook and on Instagram. Happy to have you here.
This is Militarm Murphy from Instagram, the one and only.
Hang Hobbies over here. Thanks for listening to us. Be stupid a little bit, but share our opinion, and hopefully you can keep on coming back. That's all I got.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Peace out.